matter and the craft matters, and being able to prove to St. Louis that, you know what, like, we are worth it, and putting in that extra 10%, whether it's the details and the material selections in stadium, or it's a button on an app. Like, we think about those details because they do matter. And I do think we have to work harder to convince St. Louis that we deserve nice things and it's okay to celebrate them.
Welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast. I am joined by a very special guest as ever. This time it's front office Chief Experience Officer Matt Sebek. Matt, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Pete. You're doing a hell of a job here, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a long time coming to have you on the podcast. Last time we spoke, it was about fan experience in the stadium, but a very specific reason. Today we want to talk more broadly about your role. I want to get under the skin of like how you pick up a role like this, because Chief Experience Officer is quite a new job title in the sort of sporting world. And I want to talk about the future, what's going well, what can fans expect moving forward. And yeah, we can go from there. But before we get into that, Matt, there is a very important set of questions that I have to ask you. This is the fun time section.
Okay.
Serious answers only. Tea or coffee?
Coffee. I'm a coffee snob. Grinder, AeroPress, it's a whole scene.
Which soccer team do you support that is not St. Louis City SC?
We're going to do this early. Tottenham Hotspur, Pete.
Does that make you proud?
It does. Very, very much so.
Good. Favorite productivity app?
I'm big into Notion, note-taking app, sharing app, collaborative app. Love it. Notion, Slack.
Most listened to artist of 2023?
I haven't been in music. I'm mostly podcasts lately.
It's probably Muse. Probably that Muse song.
Muse, Phoenix. Yeah. Actually, I've been on a bit of a 90s alt-rock kick lately.
Okay. Secret skill people do not know about?
I don't know if you know this, Pete. I can ride a unicycle.
Really?
Yeah.
That is new. That's what this podcast is about.
That's
Breaking
right.
exclusive news. Cat or dog?
Dog.
Cheat day meal?
Balkan treat box. Got it.
It's experienced team.
It almost doesn't feel like cheating. It's so
No.
beautiful and delicious.
Running or cycling?
Running. Love to run.
Who's the fastest runner at the club that isn't in the sporting department?
Jason Tyne.
Favorite possession that is also a flex?
Also a flex. The first City Red jersey that Adidas sent us, I have.
You've got that.
I do.
Best player you've ever seen that is not Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo?
This is like against live on TV.
Live, like in the flesh.
Ibrahimovic with the Galaxy.
That's a
Fun
good
to
one.
watch.
Okay, cool. Right, let's move into the meat of the podcast. Matt, your job title was Chief Experience Officer. There aren't many Chief Experience Officers. I don't think there's a single Chief Experience Officer in MLS. There's not many in sport, I don't think.
No.
Can you explain what that is?
So it's definitely new. Origins are in consumer retail and restaurant. Big brands, Disney, Lululemon, Facebook, they all have chief experience officers. And really the job is to say that we're going to put our customer, in our case, our fans, front and center of everything that we do. So we're going to measure their entire journey, whether they're inside City Park here or outside engaging with us in retail stores, on social. So it's really to put that front and center, day one at the club.
So what departments fold under an experience department?
I mean, historically, it had been, marketing and technology. For those that work in other businesses, those two departments, they have different incentives, they speak different languages. So functionally, those are the big buckets. For us as a club, you think of the entire fan journey. For City fans, it is, our content and creative headed by, a British lad with really fun hair, does a marvelous job at our internal agency. So every single piece of content and creative you see put up by the club is done by our internal agency of videographers, copywriters, graphic designers. So that's a big and very formidable part of the experience team. Alongside that, you also have kind of core marketing, supporter relations as a part of that, since our supporter is a big part of the experience. You have our digital team that is in charge of our homegrown app and our websites, social accounts. You have retail So managing every single piece of merchandise and our collaborations that we're doing with our partners, our 2 team stores. You have live experience. So the live experience inside City Park is very choreographed, especially the pregame show, but also the music and the food experience inside the stadium. And then finally, we have technology. So the things that fans often don't see, it's the wireless connectivity, it's the video boards, even on the food side, all the technology that goes into that. So again, the goal, those departments seem, they all have their own.
Seems like quite a varied, it's not just all creative people, it's not all technology people. How does that, what are the benefits of them all sitting under an experience group?
The benefit is that, we work in such an efficient way. Ultimately, if a fan's discovering us on, social feeds or in the stadium, they care about the consistency, the excellence. And so we get to say, let's eliminate all the silos between those teams, put them together. And I think the output is very magical. I think the multiplier for us is when these groups work together to create outcomes, and it's been pretty remarkable thus far.
The club has been, funded by the Taylor family. Taylor family, one of the most successful business families in American history. They have very strong core values and principles. Is there a correlation between how they've got their success and how City has tried to build its success? Are there any value crossovers there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just on day one of designing a club that, cares so deeply about experience, I think, the Taylor family has, such a remarkable business in enterprise rent-a-car and putting, their customer at the center of what they do. And, they're known for great service, and they measure it with NPS scores and always trying to, improve and innovate along the way. So I think, we take a lot of those principles from the Taylor family and the enterprise business and have folded them into a sports organization. It's pretty unique.
There's lots of really cool things that happen at City Park, and I'm obviously going to big up my colleagues. I work in the experience department, but there's a lot of talent in there, and a lot of that talent comes from St. Louis. Is that by design, and is that a surprise to the people of St. Louis that there is so much world-class talent in this city, and when you bring it together, it creates something magic?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there is an immense amount of talent here, and I think again the thing that has been the commonality between whether it's all those departments, all the people at the club, is whether they're from St. Louis or not, whether they've been in sport or not, whether they love soccer or not. They are all united by this cause that started with our ownership group about this club is not only about great competitive football, but it's about uplifting the region. And I think everybody at the club is committed to that mission. And it's great to see. And the amount of talent, whether it's creative talent, technology talent that we've been able to attract to this club is unprecedented.
We had Lee Broughton on the podcast, and he spoke about the greater mission of the club and how we're trying to create an opinion of St. Louis from outside. Do you think the way that the club is operating at the moment and the conversations that you have with other clubs in the league, do you think the talent that we have as St. Louis is creating an opinion outside of St. Louis that maybe wasn't there before?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's creating an opinion inside St. Louis. I think, St. Louis has had its ups and downs, at least the decades that I've been alive. And I think the idea that we can look in the mirror and be proud about ourselves, I think it starts here in St. Louis. And then we'll start to care about the opinion outside St. Louis. But I think, the thing that we care about at City Park is, we don't really control at all the result on the field. But if we can build pride and a positive experience outside the white lines, then we're doing a pretty good job.
And we are early days in the project. You've got a lot of experience working in lots of different businesses. For a startup where we are right now, do you feel pleased with how things are going on your bits and more broadly, the club as a whole? Has it lived up to what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I mean, even the last conversation that we had about we measure everything we possibly can. If we don't measure, we can't improve. One of the things we've been fascinated about is how do our survey scores compare? Win, loss, or draw here at City Park, and it's pretty remarkable. It's remained consistent, and that's exactly what we want to see. So if we're bringing smiles into the park and smiles out of the park independent of result, that's exactly what we want to see. So that's how we've come, food, music, art, architecture, all of those things, I think just make people feel good about the region that they're in. The fact that the team has been competitive alongside of that has been a bit of lightning in a bottle the first 6 months here.
So you are St. Louis born and raised. Like, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your experience of the city was as a young person.
Yeah, I'm born and raised, and grew up in South County, Missouri. So I've always been from here. Went to school at University of Evansville. Played soccer there. Met my wife at Evansville, but she also happened to be from St. Louis. So moving back here and raising a family here was a no-brainer for us. Both our families are from here, so love St. Louis and born and raised.
How did your relationship with soccer start? Knowing that this is a soccer city, but did someone from the family pull you in? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, my dad had played soccer. My grandpa played soccer, and as people in St. Louis know, it's kind of in our DNA here. There's a lot of youth programs here in St. Louis, so playing soccer is kind of what you do. We have great collegiate programs here, so I was attracted to soccer, and baseball is my other sport, so I kind of floated between those all the way through high school.
What position did you play at soccer?
Like center, defensive mid. So like a number 6.
What sort of number 6 were you?
Dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could run all day, clean things up. Usually, did a lot of man marking when I played in college. Just try to take out, their number 10. So I love being box to box midfielder.
Do you ever get tempted to put the boots back on?
All the time. Every Sunday, Pete.
I've seen your ankles when you come in after putting those boots back on. Maybe not a good idea. I work with you every day, and I know that you've got a deep, deep love for this city and this region. Can you explain a little bit about that and how that drives you as a person every day?
I think there are, we have challenges like any city does, but if you kind of pull back a little bit, the beauty of this region is unparalleled, and it's a great place to raise a family. It's affordable. Public parks, the things to do with kids as a family are amazing. The food is absolutely incredible. That dates back to kind of our history as, a founding city and a place where immigrants wanted to be because of the rivers and the trains. And you have these pockets and communities, and it's a remarkable city. And to tie it back to the club, we just wanted to focus on all of those positive elements here at City Park to be a bit of a town square where you could come to a single place and feel all the good that's going on in the region. And that really is, that drove a lot of the mission of what we're trying to put on game day.
So growing up, your job title didn't exist. What was your sort of life ambition? What did you want to be when you
man, I mean, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I love the stage and kind of the theatrics of being the focus of attention. If that wasn't a soccer player, it was, I wanted to be a shortstop for the Cardinals. Loved Ozzie Smith. He was one of my heroes growing up. From that, in college, I really, with the influence of technology and storytelling and the fusion of art and creative, I wanted to work for Pixar. I wanted to be like on the leading edge of storytelling and how technology was kind of underneath all that.
So you came out of college. What sort of jobs did you take in your early years?
So I graduated with a joint degree in computer science and marketing, which was really weird.
It's an odd combo.
It is, yeah. And I, out of college, got a job at AT&T, which is right down the street here, from City Park, and found a really unique position, which was developing Singular.com. So Singular was early days in mobile phones and smartphones, but if you think of AT&T, they were coming from traditional world of yellow page advertisements, and now they're moving into the world of e-commerce. So really was this fusion of marketing and technology and how to direct to consumer through e-commerce. And it was such an amazing learning opportunity to kind of build that website and to move from traditional advertising to new media, and it's kind of everything wrapped up in my early career, and you see the evolutions of that today.
So you had some consultancy roles, some technical roles. You ended up working for Worldwide Technology. Jim Kavanagh, one of our owners, worked for his company, working with some of the biggest brands in the world. Talk to me about that role, because that was the cutting edge, some of the things that you were doing, right?
Yeah. So at Worldwide Technology, led digital for them. So app development, business consulting, data and analytics. And we really found a niche working with fast moving consumer brands, Panera, Papa John's, Jersey Mike's, Nordstrom. And these were, over the last 10 years, businesses that were really committing to innovation. And we would come in and I would spend 6 months with these brands really as their chief digital officer, sitting between marketing and technology, helping them design their loyalty programs, their, in-store activations through apps and digital menu boards, self-service kiosks. So that food industry, I think we're really on the leading edge of the digital to physical crossovers. So spending the last 10 years of my career, tons of lessons learned of how we then build City Park a couple years later.
So you start to pull the threads of your career, like you're converting Yellow Pages into .coms, then you're at like extremely fast brands. I mean, pizza delivery is like unbelievably quick. You need to be reliable. Like there's e-commerce elements. Did you ever think the skills that you were learning would be applicable to sport? Because I don't think your background naturally equates to sport. Certainly not like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people on the business side or front office of sport, they come out of college and they know, this is what I want to do. I want to be in sport, and you move from team to team, to league, and I never, while being a huge sport fan, never had an ambition to work in sport. So that wasn't a natural progression for me, but it is really, it's neat to kind of look back and see how the stepping stones of the experience that I had, to be able to bring that into an industry like sports that, through COVID and a global pandemic, I think things are changing in sports, and it's a model that needs to be, turned upside down a little bit. So having that experience and bringing it into a new project like this, I think was right place, right time.
So Diego, our club president, also had a background in consulting like you. What does that background give you that seems to work well in sport? What's the special sauce there?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that with Diego. It's there's a lot of research involved in consulting, so understanding what not only your competitors but cross industry, what are ideas we can borrow from. The other part is just, I think, having a bias for solving problems. It is understanding, what needs to be done and rolling up your sleeves and doing those things. The kind of the reciprocal effect is like everything has to have an ROI. So as a consultant, as you're pitching businesses or selling them on ideas, what is the return on investment? That's a critical part of our job every single day. And I think I got really good at it being a consultant, working from the outside in at a lot of these businesses.
There are two companies that I know have inspired the way that you've thought about things, and that's Apple and Bridgewater. You've got intimate knowledge like Apple. Like, hey, everybody knows who Apple is if you're watching this and listening to this on your podcast. Check what your phone is. But Bridgewater, people may not know about. Ray Dalio has written a book called Principles. It's a big hedge fund company, one of the most successful hedge funds of all time. You worked with those companies. What did you learn from those companies that really stuck with you about how to make a successful department, business, club?
I mean, let's start with Apple. Apple, working with all the brands I had mentioned before, Papa John's, Panera, Jersey Mike's, we had the ability to really get into the Apple ecosystem and work on a couple of early launches with Apple so that these companies could be early adopters, tons of media opportunities. So got to work with Apple on the launch of the iPhone 6, Apple TV, and Watch OS with the Apple Watch. So it was really fun, working with them to see the amount of detail and care that they put into their entire ecosystem. I think that is something that early in my career, just really stuck with me about, that care and attention are emotions that you feel. And as you enter the physical space, that's where user experience and design are so important, and the emphasis that they put into packaging and all those little elements that show if you take care of the small stuff, you'll trust them with the big stuff. And I think that is, certainly principles that have folded into the club.
Do you think sometimes people say don't care too much about? People do. Don't. It's only a job. But when you were in Apple, it's more than a job for these people. Like, you think care is an emotion, and an emotion can directly impact craft.
Yeah, that's right. And they undoubtedly care about their craft. And I think it is that principle that if you care about the small stuff, you can build that emotional connection with your consumers. And I think they do it better than anyone. Bridgewater, very different company. In Connecticut, the hedge fund, they're in charge of, managing billions of dollars of assets for people. And, they're led by Ray Dalio, as you said, and the formation of their business is studying human behavior. And if you can study humans and predict where they're going to go, you'll have an edge over your competitors over how the economy is going to act. And, they treat their own internal employees, and their own culture is guided by a set of principles. And that is Ray Dalio's now famous book that was released a couple years ago. And what principles are really just a way to write down, little tips and tricks along your journey that you can learn from. And everybody has their own sets of principles. Bridgewater has their own, every company has their own, but it's the documentation of that, so that if you are in financial trading, you don't want to repeat the sins of your past. And so by creating almost like tips and tricks and guardrails for you to act in, you're going to be better, smarter into the future. So I think it's incredibly important for us, because as we journey into a new space and we want to be a club that is innovative and different and new, that we, ultimately have a set of truths that we can all agree upon, whether you work in content and creative or special events or ticketing. And so really kind of having that be the basis of a lot of our culture, I think, is really important.
Are there any of those truths that you could share with the listeners that you think are really important to how this club operates?
There's a Bridgewater principle that we talk about a lot at the club, which is pain plus reflection equals progress. And at a very simple level, this is, every single match, we have 22,500 people in our building, and they're filling out surveys. We're getting data. And for us, we have a game on Saturday night, and on Monday morning, we're looking through those surveys and the data to get smarter and better. And sometimes that data is hard to see, or it's unexpected. How fans act versus how they said they are going to act can be very different. So being very truthful and honest about those things, we can grow as a club and evolve. And I think, 6 months into our first season, we've made a ton of improvements because of that principle of just let's we can have hard conversation. We reflect on that, and then we talk about what we can do better.
That's really interesting. You've spoken a bit about the technical side of things, but there's also Matt, the fan. Like, you love sport. It would be remiss of me not to talk about your stint as that Cardinals guy. As some of my friends, they're like, "Oh, that's Matt Sebek. He was the Cardinals guy." Like, you were a bit of a super fan back in the day. Do you think that having that account, talking about the Cardinals relentlessly, do you think that sort of gave you a deeper understanding of how the internet moves and how fan sentiment moves? Does that give you makes you more alert to things that are going on in the club, and you're like, fans are not going to like that, so let's pivot and let's do something different?
No doubt. Yeah. And kind of like that, the born on the internet culture and how fans respond in stadium versus out of stadium, and what things are likely to be shared or be buzzworthy. I think all of those things. And I think, talking about St. Louis as a whole, like, St. Louis loves St. Louis, and the idea that when you create campaigns that allow St. Louisans to celebrate the things that are going on well here, I think it creates a real flywheel of success.
Very cool. Okay, let's talk about St. Louis City SC. You're obviously a huge soccer fan, very tuned in to what's going on in St. Louis. There was a failed MLS bid, but then one succeeded.
Woo.
Were your spidey senses alert to there's a soccer club in town? I've got all of this technical experience. I love sport. I would like to get in on this. Like, were you thinking about that, or were you nowhere near?
A bit. I mean, again, kind of right place, right time. Of the clients I was working with at Worldwide Technology, Enterprise was one of them. So I had kind of understood the family, and when they got involved, and of course Jim Kavanaugh at the Worldwide side. We as a company started to do some outside in consulting for the family, and ultimately MLS for the Lou, as it was called. And started to do some research around leagues, around businesses, on what are the successes and failures of other organizations, what has been the effect of the global pandemic. And so we were putting this all together, and this idea for an experience officer came up, and I was writing the job description for this, and that's when it kind of like clicked to me that I don't know. I'm gonna have season tickets here. I'm going to be a super fan of the club. I don't know that I could stomach watching somebody else do the job that I wrote the job description for. So that's when I raised my hand and ultimately pivoted careers about 180 degrees, got into sport, but it has all worked out. It's been everything I had hoped for and more.
So one of my questions was, like, how did you find the job? Seems like quite a specialized ask. It turns out you wrote the job spec for yourself and then decided that you would take the job.
I didn't know I was writing it for myself, Pete.
Was there a fear? I mean, like, Worldwide Technology is a huge billion-dollar company, and you're doing good work there. Moving into sport, there's always the risk of, like, never meet your heroes. It might not be as good as you think it could be. Did you have any of those trepidations? Like, my career's on track, I've got kids, I got a mortgage, like all of those bits. Did that sort of swirl around in your head?
Yeah, it did. Absolutely. And, I remember the conversation I was having with my, he's now 12 years old. He was 9 at the time, talking to my son. And some of it's just like, think like a kid. Like, if I was 9, is this my dream job? And I was talking to him, and I was mentioning all the things that this job would entail. And he's a soccer fan himself, and he didn't instinctively say, "Oh, it's great, we get to go to the games for free." It was more of, "Hey, Dad, like I think you'd be perfect for that job," And so
that's sweet.
That was the moment for me that was like, this. Forget the fears and trepidations. Like, I needed to take this opportunity.
So you start the club. There's nothing here. This is just a pile of rubble. Probably not even a pile of rubble that needed to clear some things to get to a pile of rubble. You've got no team. There's a loose vision. You've got to put something down on paper. Like, where do you start?
Well, I mentioned a lot of it started with research, and I think that really the relationship that a lot of clubs have with their fans is fundamentally broken. It's very transactional and fragmented. There's too many partners. There's bad technology, not enough data to serve up personalized experiences. So for us, we knew we wanted to create relationships with our fans that were deeper than that. So that meant investing in technologies where we could control the user experience. And that is from the stadium to the app, to our social feeds, to the content that we create. So I think ultimately you see the pieces and parts that make up of that. But we knew from day one, we wanted to create something that created deep relationships, not transactional ones.
St. Louis has Cardinals fans, a lot of Cardinals fans, like 3 million people go through the gate every year. Huge hockey fandom, football fandom. Like, St. Louis loves sport. There's 3 million people in the region. How do you work out who is a City fan or a potential City fan? Like, I know that there's a lot of soccer fans here, but like, you got to go broader than just soccer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did an immense amount of fan surveys and focus groups, and to try to really crack that nut early on in the development of the club. And what we found is there are a lot of magnets that we have invested into beyond the game of soccer. The soccer fans are here. We know they're here. But it was, how do we use, again, food, pets, music, art, architecture, all of these things that are tangentially related to sport. But if we can suck people in through other means and then convert them to a soccer fan, we knew we'd be doing a good job. We're building a beautiful stadium, have plenty of pictures. We knew the World Cup was the winner before our inaugural season. So we had kind of everything lined up to our advantage. We just needed that magnet to bring people into the fold.
There's been when I landed here and spoke to fans, there's been a lot of missteps. There'd been a lot of disappointments, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of clubs over the years. How did you go about addressing concerns that this would just be another disappointment or another heartbreak?
I think existing in the wake of the Rams and Stan Kroenke moving the team, the fact that we are, 100% local ownership group, 100% privately financed, those were probably the most extreme ways to combat something that was very hard to go through. So the fact that, the Taylors and the Kavanaugh are involved and publicly available at the stadium, you can see them. I just think there's a real authenticity that our fans see in the ownership group where, all right, this is something we can finally, we can step into, believe and invest in because it's not going anywhere. I think that means everything.
What was the tactical approach to converting doubt into positivity? I mean, obviously the Taylor family and the Kavanaughs are huge. They live here. Do you have to sort of like get on the road and go and meet people where they're at in their different bars and places? Did you do that?
Yeah, and I think it's, again, back to the your question about Apple, Pete, is the details matter and the craft matters, and being able to prove to St. Louis that, like we are worth it, and putting in that extra 10%, whether it's the details and the material selections in stadium or it's a button on an app. Like, we think about those details because they do matter. And I do think we have to work harder to convince St. Louis that we deserve nice things and it's okay to celebrate them.
There are a lot of super fans in St. Louis. I've met a lot of them well before the club was what it is today. What about the non-super fans? Like how did the club go about introducing soccer to people that maybe hadn't gone? I mean, I meet people in the ground every single week and they're like, I didn't know anything about soccer before St. Louis City and I'm here now and I love it. How do you get those people enthusiastic enough to put money down on season tickets, to buy single game tickets, and to come here, not just come here, sit down and watch the game, come here and get involved and sing and be a part of the club?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, like I think the kind of the soccer purists is actually a small percentage of our fan base. I think the other part are just people that hear the messages of positivity and our belief in the region that, like our best days are not behind us. We are future focused. I think there's a large percentage of our fan base that has been brought into that funnel because they're like, hell yeah, that's something that I want to stand behind. So we continue to do those sorts of things. On the soccer side, though, it is, our City Futures program, great for the community, eliminates pay-to-play barriers for people, exposes people to the game, brings their parents along for the ride as well. We have fan focus groups. Our City Moves workshops have focus in a lot of different communities, allow them to provide input back to the club so that communication is a two-way street. So we have a lot of mechanisms in place to say, you know what, every game at City Park is going to be sold out, and that's great. How do we continue to build that top of funnel and exposure of the club so that, we're hopefully, building a fan base that's going to be here 20, 30, 100 years down the road.
It also seems like there's something just special about the region. St. Louis City shows up for St. Louis City. I mean, do you feel blessed to have that sort of mentality in the region? Because like these fans are crazy. I mean, they'll show up after a tornado warning. It doesn't matter whether it's raining, whether they're cold. They show up and they're relentless. Like, did you expect that? I mean, you obviously know the region. I don't, so it's more of a surprise to me. But did you expect the level of passion that these fans are showing every week?
Expected, but it's definitely exceeded it, and I think we wanted to create something that beyond the 90 minutes was the best party in town. And the idea that fans showing up, an hour, 2 hours early to a game has become part of the City Park ritual, them staying an hour after a game, an ultra club. is again part of that game day experience. Funny enough, as we have visiting teams come in, and we usually go by and say hi to the visiting supporter section, welcome them to St. Louis. It's very Midwest hospitality, Pete. And the Portland game time was at 7:30 Saturday night. We went by at 6:55. Stadium's full, and the Portland fans said, "Does the game start at 7:30, or does it start at 7?" And like, no, it starts at 7:30, and they were so confused why the whole stadium was full. So it's little things like that. Fans turning up early just shows not only the passion during the 90 minutes, but how they want to make a whole day out of it. Like, we can't keep them away.
So I want to talk about the technology side of your brain. Why did you think building an app 18 months before anything kicked off was one of the most important things? Like, the apps are notoriously difficult to build. They're even harder to get people to engage with, but you saw that as an absolute priority. Why?
It was a bit of short-term and long-term planning at the same time. I think apps are misused and underutilized in sport. App is a way for us early before games to create relationships with our fans. So 18 months before games, we have ways for fans to sign up in the app. They can personalize it. They can unlock badges, have fun with it. They can get behind the scenes info. So we're building a relationship with them. But the short term was bring them into the fold. But the long term was we knew that if we had their trust, that they would enter the stadium as a mobile first venue, and we could really push the lever on things like mobile order ahead and these frictionless markets and personalized itineraries. So we knew long term that's where we wanted to go, because it would make game day better, more personalized. We would, shorten lines and queues. So we knew where we wanted to go long term, but short term we had to kind of jump that first hurdle of gaining people's trust. So that was the goal of releasing the app so early.
So the easiest thing to do, there are lots of off-the-shelf options that clubs all over the world use. You didn't do that. Why didn't you take an off-the-shelf option, just get it done and dusted, nice and quick, save some money?
Back to Apple. We wanted to control our destiny, the user experience. So a lot of the reasons why sports apps don't have the trust is because it feels white labeled. It feels like every other sports app you've used. So we wanted to really define our craft of our app. We wanted it to be undeniably city. And that meant, building it from the ground up. It also means that we get to innovate like crazy on this. So instead of releasing a new version, once a year that's marginally better than last year, we're releasing little versions every single month that are based on the input from our fans.
Steve Jobs once famously said, customers don't know what they want until you give it to them. You didn't operate that way with the app. You engaged fans quite early on. What was that process like, asking fans to dream big, and like how do you enjoy that side of the business, getting out there, bringing people down, buying them some beers?
Yeah. Oh my God. Love it. I mean, as much research that we did, and, we really looked, in sport, but also cross industry. We borrowed design patterns from Airbnb, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify. But again, like us as the club, we can have a perspective, but ultimately our fans are going to be the ones using it. So we set up fan experience councils 2 years before the stadium opened, and app was a big focus. And we put features in front of them. We would put wireframes and designs in front of them to give us feedback. We asked them what they wanted. We prioritized those ideas in our roadmap. So when we then ultimately launch something like our app, it feels like something that we as a whole with our fans, created together, which is pretty cool.
This is could be app focused, but also more broadly like technology focused. The pandemic turbocharged a lot of technologies. And if you'd asked somebody 3 years before the pandemic what were going to be the hot technologies in 3 years' time, they'd all been completely wrong.
Yeah.
When you're building an app, you're building with a 5-year view. How do you decide what's going to be relevant by the time the app is finished? And how did you go about predicting what technologies would be needed in a new stadium?
It's tough, especially, with the global pandemic, kind of in the middle of all that. Things like digital ticketing, mobile order ahead. We're not the first to do those things, but the adoption was so low. And so when things external like a pandemic happen, these things can be greatly accelerated. So we're always keeping our eye on, moving trends like that and looking cross industry on things we might want to borrow. So whether it's, open AI or metaverse or blockchain, like we're always having those conversations. And I think the great thing is because we own the front door of our technology, we can pivot pretty quickly based on, what our fans want or how the market's moving.
Well, we're 18 months in to the app being about there or thereabouts. What's worked?
Oh, I think, in Stadium, the app is an unlock for speed and personalization. It's exactly what we wanted, 3 years ago when we dreamed this up. We have over 70% of our fans inside City Park on game day are inside our app. So people are using it for tickets, to order food, to look at stadium maps and figure out where they're at or where they want to go. I think our user base has been the greatest surprise. Is we knew it was going to be a tool on game day to operate in and around City Park, but our user base is 5 times the size of City Park. So it's again, if you don't have a ticket, it's still a key to get behind the scenes, to learn about the club. And that's been really, really fun to see. Is it's an avenue into city, whether you're inside the park or not.
So what are the things that fans can potentially look forward to next season? Like, are there any things that you're developing right now, or are we kind of good?
Yeah, I mean, we use this year as, how do we have a kind of a core set of features that allow you to get in and outside of City Park in a quick way. Now we're going to turbocharge it. We really want to separate ourselves from the competition on the app side. So we're going to lean into, more badges, more incentives. Our loyalty program's going to take off next year. We're going to focus on more mobile wallet, personalized offers. So there is a lot coming in the City app.
That's really exciting. You did mention new technologies. Just in the last 2 years, we've been told that we're all going to be living in a metaverse. We've been speaking about VR forever, crypto, NFTs, NFT loyalty programs, AI. Which tools or technologies have got you most excited about, with regards to sport? Like, where could we see things going in the future?
I like the potential benefits of AI and things like ChatGPT. I think it can, you think about customer service or questions. 22,000 people have a lot of different questions on game day, from stats to where's this restaurant to how do I do this, that. So the idea of automations that chatbots can kind of get us close to, but large data sets like 22,000 people is prime for OpenAI. The other thing is just predictive recommendations, itineraries. So the idea that Pete comes to his first game at City Park, we can tell you based on the large data set of other fans, where to park, where to enter, where to eat, what merch you would like the most. So kind of those predictive recommendations, I think, can make game day pretty sweet.
Like a sort of game day expert, game day co-pilot.
Yeah,
sort of
Genie, right, digital assistant.
Oh, very cool. If you were going to pitch the app for next season, the elevator pitch for where it's going.
The app for next year is we have ambitions to be the best app in sport, and I think we're close, if not already there, and we really want to turbocharge. So I would say that the elevator pitch is a digital playground. There's going to be lots of unlocks and badges and just a lot more. The base utility is already there. It's time to have some fun on it.
Digital play. Oh my God, you should have worked in advertising. Digital playground. What a line. Okay, let's talk about the stadium experience. Like when I first joined the club, you said on a lot of occasions that you didn't want the stadium to be the last of the old. You wanted it to be the first of the new. Just explain that a little bit.
It's just, if you only look at what's common, you can expect common results, and we didn't want to do that. It's a big, beautiful, magnificent facility here, and that meant investing in technology, investing in partners, investing in kind of things and people that are looking at the future. And so some of that is our work is never done. And so season 1 has been great. We want to make season 2 of this show even better. So that's what we mean by that, is always focus on the future, always improving, always innovating.
Like first of the new though, you could have quite easily gone down the path of being like, oh, the currency of the stadium is going to be crypto, and then it blows up in your face. How are you strategic about what the new is? Because you could make expensive errors trying to be too new. Is there like a balance between maturity of technologies?
Yeah, I think, first of the new, one of the principles of that, from the digital world to the physical world to the stadium, is like meet fans where they are. And so you look at the stadium and we have frictionless markets. So if you don't want to speak to another human and you want to get in, get out as fast as you can, you have that. But we also have places of the stadium that have been intentionally designed where hospitality comes front and center and technology is nowhere to be seen. So I think that is the principle across the board for us, is really meet fans where they are. So if we look at a technology like crypto, we have a lot of different fans and different segments to appease. And so if it's a nuanced technology that only 10 people are going to care about, it's probably not for us. So that's kind of how we're looking at the broad, innovation ecosystem.
Okay, so are there any cool technologies that sort of underpin City that maybe people don't know about?
I think one of the things, like connectivity. Beyond a stadium, we're a 31-acre district, and so the idea that all of these buildings, training facility, our stadium, our team store, our headquarters, they are all interconnected by fiber. So our ability to share video files or set up watch parties across the district, full screen takeovers, is the only places doing that in the United States are SoFi Stadium and Disney World. And so
So we share the same pipes as SoFi and Disney World.
the same design principles, so that we can then take advantage of those things as we think about, broadcast or hospitality parties on game day. It's a really, really unique environment we have here.
You mentioned first of the new and wins. Like, are there any wins that you think are first of the new that are kind of unique to here, even if it is like the re-upping of an old technology that people didn't really use? Like, what's really working with this fan base?
Mobile order ahead has surprised us. It's, again, we aren't the first to do it, but if in most stadiums, it's less than 1% of ordering. It's just not used. Standing in lines is just something, for some reason, we as sports fans just tolerate. So for us to roll out mobile order ahead with a fan base that's highly engaged in our mobile app, it's over 20% of our sales here at the stadium, which is bonkers. Those types of numbers compete with some of those QSR brands I mentioned before, restaurant and retail brands. So that's been really, really fun to see. Digital ticketing, we're 100% digital ticketing, so that's been really fun. The average session time in our app is like 10 minutes, so people are getting in, they're watching and learning more about the club. All of these technologies, I think we've been pleasantly surprised that a place like St. Louis, I think, can have a lot of doubt about itself, about being early adopters to technology. We haven't seen that at all. People are ready for it.
Our ownership group was very keen to make sure the food experience really reflected St. Louis. I've sat in the room with Carolyn, and she's told me stories about people not really traveling outside their local area to eat, and there's a lot of great food. So how do you bring that to life? I know the food experience is one of your points of pride. Talk to me about why our food experience is the way it is, and what inspired the club outside an ownership directive to take the path that we did.
I think there's so many reasons. Food is like soccer. It's international, it's communal, we do it together. And so food and soccer, I think, are inextricably linked regardless. For us, the way that St. Louis is divided up by neighborhoods, there's a lot of great food and pockets of St. Louis, but we have the same, 2 or 3 restaurants that we go to every single time. And so the idea of City Park being a platform, a bit of that town square I mentioned, of a place where people could come and discover restaurants, be impressed, and then realize, oh my God, this is in my town. I can't believe it. And then want to venture there outside of their neighborhood of comfort on a non-game day. That was really the inspiration behind it. So we've been very deliberate about you know, the restaurants that have been picked for City Park, they're all across the region. They're east side, they're west side, they're north, south. They range from Bosnian to barbecue, Senegalese, Italian. So there really is something for everybody here, but it's all about that moment of discovery and pride.
Matt, I've been all around the world. I've been to a lot of new stadiums. I've been to new stadiums in America. Nobody's doing this. Why?
Oh, it's hard. It is easy to serve pretzels, nachos, popcorn, and we certainly have those options. But to be able to build a place that a local restaurant and an owner of these restaurants feel like they're opening a new location in a stadium is really hard. It's hard, from equipment to their staff to the technology that we serve up, making sure that that's all taken care of so that they can focus on doing what they do well, which is serving delicious food, and that none of those things get in the way of our fans. To do it for a couple local restaurants is hard enough. To do it for over 25 local partners here at City Park is really hard. But because it's so important, our entire team is up for the task.
How did you pick the 25?
We asked our fans, like most things. So, a couple years ago before the stadium opened, we announced that, we were interested in bringing local partners into City Park as part of the food experience. And we asked fans to tell us their local favorites. And we had over 10,000 submissions of people.
10,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And what's cool is that it wasn't the cliche St. Louis favorites. It was really these neighborhood by neighborhood favorites that we've brought into the fold. So it's been pretty fun.
Not a lot of good things happened out of the pandemic, but some good things allowed restaurants to thrive in City Park. Can you talk a little bit about how COVID allowed all of this to happen, really?
Yeah, I think a lot of them got good at things like mobile order ahead and curbside pickup and how to run with a lean staff and catering and on all of these things that, for a restaurant owner or operator to only service their brick and mortar, the pandemic taught them to be really lean and flexible. So being able to come in here and attack some of these technologies head on has really prepared them well. So they're crushing it.
Something that I wanted to talk about, our ownership group maybe don't, they don't talk about this often, but we're going to put it on a podcast. Would you charge a local restaurant holder the same price as you would, say, a big famous fast food restaurant to be in the space? Like, how do they afford to be here?
It is solely based, it's revenue share. So no buy-in price. There's no, advertising or marketing agreement, which again is a unique thing. And
so ownership has got real skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So to say like, we're going to eliminate pay to play. There's no franchises like global franchises in our stadium. It's all 100% local. Pure rev share. So we have skin in the success. They have skin in the success. I think is a super important aspect of it. The other piece is, you may see local restaurants and other stadiums. A lot of times that is the stadium buying the right to use that name, and then they're cooking the food. In City Park, it is literally the restaurants in here running the front of house, the back of the house. So that's pretty cool on game day to be able to roll up and see, Steve Ewing from Steve's Hot Dogs or Lauren Knowledge, the chef at Balkan Treat Box. So they've become personalities of the game day experience.
Yeah. Did you expect to see them at every game? Because it does seem like the restaurant owners, a lot of them are at every single game.
They love it. They love it. I mean, they love the energy. They love fans coming by, getting selfies with the chefs, and to have chefs be personalities of the game day experience at City Park is pretty unique. But fans love it.
Most Premier League football clubs get fans in 10 minutes before the game. You just told the story about Portland fans thinking the game kicked off early because so many fans were down here early. Was it a desire that if you've got all of these amazing restaurant owners in here that we needed to convince St. Louis City fans to come down here? Like, was that part of the sort of vision that people would get down early and try a new restaurant every week?
Yeah, I think with soccer matches, it's 90 minutes. There's not a lot of stoppages in play. It's a 15-minute halftime. So the opportunities to engage the fan base in the stadium are actually quite small. And it's one of the things a lot of other soccer stadiums, both domestically and globally, told us. And we wanted to, again, the consultant in me is always asking, well, why is it that way? And what is the problem? And how do we get around that? A lot of times it's just there's not incentive pregame to show up. So we knew that while the food experience is something we wanted to anchor on, if the food was good enough to turn up for dinner here before a game, like that's exactly what we wanted to create. So I think that's built a bit of a ritual here that 7:30 kickoff. You're going to get here at 6:30, bring the whole family, eat a good local meal, support local restaurants. It's become part of the ritual here.
How is it going for the restaurant owners? I mean, you're obviously going to get you get attrition in the first season. Doesn't always work out for everybody. Like, what's the feedback from these local restaurateurs? And should St. Louis City fans feel good about coming here early and spending their time with these restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, they're all excited. They're asking how to get more locations in the stadium. So, I think in the month of March, it was, their eyes were wide open because, some of these restaurants they serve 9,000 people all year at their brick and mortar locations. And we're serving them up in a location where we've got 22,000 fans that could potentially want their food. So the scale that they're dealing with is like they've never seen. And so now that they've got a level of expectation set, they're excited about it. They're ready to go. We just want to keep it fresh. So we'll be adding restaurant partners all the time. That's part of being a reflection of culture and community. Fans have suggested new up and coming restaurants that they would like to see in City Park. We're asking even, ones that will return next year for their season 2 menu to always keep it fresh. So if you've had Balkan Treat Box here at the stadium, you should try this new menu item. So we're always going to keep it fun, fresh, and exciting.
And it would be remiss of me not to mention Gerard Kraft, our chief flavor officer. We've seen him delivering pizzas to the supporters. He's always around. He's a great personality. He was a star in the food documentary that he did at the start of the year. Have you tied him to a new deal next year? Are we going to see Mr. Kraft back in the stadium? And is he helping with season 2 of the food story?
Yeah, Gerard will be back. He loves it. I think we've converted him into a passionate soccer fan too. So yeah, I mean, Gerard stays in tune with all of the up and coming restaurants and chefs. So he's always integral in our success on the food side.
Okay, so like summing this up, the fans of St. Louis have made the stadium like a destination this season. Everything seems to be going really well on the pitch, seems to be going well off the pitch. Like, what work are you putting in to bottle this and make sure that the fans have an even better experience next season? Like, are we looking to keep things the same, improve? Like, what's going on?
Never the same. No, constant improvement. Again, pain plus reflection equals progress. I think we haven't endured much pain. It's been a remarkable historic season. It's been so enjoyable, but we always want to improve. We always want to be a reflection of culture and community. So that means always improving. So always improving the app, always improving our content and creative, always improving the stadium experience. Our pregame show, I think, is a hidden gem. We're going to, continually evolve that. So yeah, I think, season 1 has been magical, but I think season 2 is going to be even better.
And if fans see you in the stadium and they've got an opinion or they've got an idea and they share it with you, are you open to listening to those fans that you see in and around on match day?
Always. Good, bad, and the ugly.
Fantastic. So we have a little tradition on the City Voice podcast. We end with a message to the fans who've been absolutely exceptional through the whole period that you've been at the club. I wondered if you have a message to sign off with.
I mean, just thank you. It is unbelievable how we can put so much detail and craft into the comprehensive experience. But the fact that when that whistle blows, it is all about the fans, and so much of our experience rides on their shoulders, their noise, the chant, the standing, the sitting, everything in between. The fans have brought it and then some. It has exceeded my wildest expectations. So thank you.
Matt, that was a brilliant podcast. I learned a lot about who you are. It's great to hear about your philosophies, and great to hear that City's always looking to improve. If you are listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star review. Tell Matt Sebek that was a really interesting podcast and you want him to come back on, and maybe he will at the start of next season to give us a bit of insight into what's changing and what we can be excited about. But on that note, thank you so much for coming on. That was great.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Ciao for now, everybody.